So I leave it up to you. It is 6:30. You do have a quorum. I haven't heard from Alessandra. So I don't know where she is. And I know that Mr. McConnell will be here,
Yeah.
but I don't know when.
Okay. You guys, is everybody else okay with
So
giving them
if
5
you're not
minutes?
worried about getting a split vote on like the agenda,
No, we can give them 5 minutes.
okay,
That won't hurt anybody.
okay.
Gives me time to get my computer on too.
I didn't do it. I didn't do that either.
Oh, I think your cord was probably on the mic back there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with that.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
Maybe I'll just try one of these over here. There we go. Oh, that's all I had to do for this one. Just probably push a little bit harder. Try not to push it so hard. Maybe.
Good evening.
Howdy.
Oh, no worries. I was just here. I just got here a minute ago. I was doing a consulting deal, and when I said I have a hard stop, they thought that was optional. And I'm like, it's not optional.
It's gonna be hard to stop right then. I think that's what they thought you meant.
Why is there like?
Despite my best efforts.
Okay, this is as good as you're gonna get tonight.
Thank you.
feel like having the gavel on my right is too much of a temptation. I'm gonna move it to my left. So we're good?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
So I will call the January 26, 2026 Planning Commission meeting to order. It is a regular meeting. And with that, I will go to roll call with Commissioner Nahum.
Here?
Is that proper?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner McConnell,
I'm here finally.
as on time as we would expect. Commissioner McCurtis,
Here.
Commissioner Brooks,
Here.
and Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Here.
And we'll know Commissioner Snyder has emailed and said she would not be attending today. On that, I will move to, Commissioner Romback is here also. I guess I should note that I'm here. We'll go to public remarks. Seeing no comments from the public, we can move directly into approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner McConnell, seconded by Commissioner McCurtis. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. We can mark the agenda approved. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from January 12th, our January 12th meeting. Does anybody have any comments regarding the minutes from the January 12th meeting?
I move to approve the minutes.
So moved by Commissioner McCurtis,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner McConnell. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. We will have mark the approval of the minutes of the January 12th meeting. Next section is on communications. There are no communications. There are also no public hearings. And there is no unfinished business. So with that, we are at number 9 on the agenda, starting with with our continuing parking ordinance discussion.
I guess we're okay. Yeah, thank you. We talked about this at your last meeting. Staff got a lot of comments, a lot of questions. So I'm going to go through the memo I wrote and just kind of highlight work we've done, hopefully answered some questions and move forward on this. First thing I want to bring to your attention, I said I would come back with a comparison. You'll remember that staff was suggesting a maximum number of parking spaces. This was in the name of limiting impervious surface on a parking lot. There was concern that that might limit specifically restaurant development in the future. Staff said we'd go back and compare that. We'd look at what was approved for the Panda site plan, and what was approved for the Panda site plan was 64 parking spaces when they required 24. So staff is not going to die on this hill, but that is up for your further discussion. That number can move or it can just come out. It's up to you. There was a question about the approving authority. Now, I kind of went into this. I think we clarified this more. The Village of Namoka language that said planning commission or director or planning director, I'm just going to refer to planning director. That was giving authority to grant SUPs where that authority didn't exist for the director. But this is not the same situation. There are situations where in a special use permit that's being reviewed by the planning commission, you guys are making a call, but on a site plan, by this language, the planning director is making that call. That is why that language was put in there. It's not the same situation. I can answer questions about that, but I think we answered that question on why we put that language in here, but we took it out of the Village of Namoka update a couple years ago. Question came up about location of gravel driveways, how they compare to paved driveways. Excuse me. Based on that discussion, we updated the draft ordinance language and put some draft language in there that states no new gravel driveways are allowed within the urban service boundary after approval of this update. That is based on the conversation. It's submitted for your discussion. Commercial trucks, you asked us to review the language about that and clarify. So we rewrote that paragraph. Did a little bit of research on how other communities looked at that. Think we clarified that and tightened that language up. The discussion about native landscaping, you asked us to look into some language to encourage native plantings in the buffer area. So we did add a sentence that states, buffer areas have to meet the requirements found in section 86-758-1D. Remember, the language said, during the discussion, we realized that language already exists. It speaks about native landscaping. So rather than having it discussed in two different parts, it just refers back to the original language. Finally, this discussion about not bikes, not cars, not motorcycles, those in-betweens. I spent a lot of time looking into this, and the term that seems to be most common for what you're talking about is this micromobility. So that's how I'm going to refer to it in the future. E-bikes, scooters, things like that. I did find a definition: small, low-speed vehicles intended for personal use, station-based bike share programs, dockless bike share systems, electric assist bikes, electric scooters, things like that. They weigh under 1,100 pounds, don't exceed 28 miles an hour. That's not staff saying that. I've actually found some technical language. There's a lot you guys can do with that. This is a separate discussion in its own. When you start getting into this, some communities are putting in charging stations for e-bikes. You have the ability to mark off areas. We can incentivize this. So staff doesn't have anything in here right now, but we're in a much better position to discuss this with you. Having said that, staff is ready to answer questions and continue on this ordinance update.
Open it to commissioner questions. Commissioner McConnell.
Well, first, thanks to staff for taking on all the stuff that we asked you to take on. I especially appreciate the information on micromobility. It is a term that I see in very, very frequent use. Precise definitions tend to vary as the technology evolves.
Sure.
Speed limits and weight limits and number of passengers. In what I tend to see, micromobility also tends to be one or two persons at most.
Yeah.
There's another kind of feature of them. And I appreciate this. It's probably more than we want to try to take on this evening as a discussion item, but I'm wondering if there are other folks that we might want to have involved in the conversation as we move forward thinking about micromobility, whether that's the business community, folks who have built recently, folks who are operating businesses, what they're seeing in terms of trends in their customers, whether this is something that doesn't really apply to us yet, and we don't need to be worried about it, or it's already becoming an issue that we should be focusing on. My perspective is the MSU campus, where it's obviously a big issue, but I don't see the same issues in the township.
I tend to agree with you. You mentioned reaching out to the business community. With your permission, I'll reach out to Director Clark, who staffs the DDA and the CIA, and see if she has any feedback and wants to bounce it off any of her people. Does that make sense? Okay.
There could even be strategic locations that are prioritized for something like that, where it may be more beneficial, like at Trader Joe's and Whole Foods area.
Yeah. I'm also thinking, since we've seen such a huge shift among our university population, whether we're experiencing that in our schools. Historically, there's been a smattering of students who ride bikes, mainly to high schools, but also to some of the middle schools. And at some points, that parking infrastructure has been inadequate. But I can imagine that it won't be too long before high schoolers start taking advantage of electric assist.
I can look into that for you too.
Not that we have much planning control over what happens on a school campus, but
No, but it would be nice to know that it's emerging somewhere.
saw students riding stand-up scooters today with no gloves on campus. I just am amazed at the lengths that some people will go to.
So, Mr. Shorkey, the only thought I had when going through this was on the micromobility. There's got to be a weird line where some of these, like, if a transportation item that qualifies under here, based on our definitions, the only thing I'm worried about is like, what is separately regulated by like state registration statute, or are we putting, I guess where the idea is we're incenting the ability to create parking for certain types of bikes. We're not really regulating the bikes themselves.
Right.
Yeah. So never mind.
Okay.
But otherwise, I will say I appreciate the write-ups because I know a couple of these were my questions on the approving authority and then on the parking for restaurants.
Mhm.
Other questions, comments, concerns?
Are you asking about the micromobility specifically, or?
I'm in general at this point. I feel like we've closed out micromobility
Okay.
because it seems to be a bit amorphous at this moment. I actually appreciate the specificity of the definition that you brought forward, Mr. Shorkey.
Thank you. Felt like the line had to be drawn somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, and there will always be somebody that says
Yeah.
you drew the line at the wrong spot.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of line drawing.
But for purposes of discussion, we had to,
Yeah, because 1,100 pounds seems big for something that you might call micro. But you pulled the definition. No, I'm not arguing with the
Yeah,
definition. You don't have to defend
yeah.
the definition. It's
Yeah.
just.
So I have a question about the gravel driveway stuff now.
yeah.
So it says in the paragraphs describing what was done is that no gravel driveways now will be allowed within the urban service boundary.
Right.
And it says in section C, or section 9, part C, as of the approval date of this revision.
Right.
So, I don't know how others feel about this. When I was talking about this last week, or last time we met, and thinking about this, I guess I was more concerned that, like, of the financial ramifications of enforcing like a no gravel area, because it was like, if you have one of the houses that are in Meridian that are relatively affordable, which are not very many, or you had a new one and you wanted to put in a driveway, which they mostly generally have them already, what if you only had money to put gravel down? Like, does that seem like I don't know, it just seems odd to me that we would place a stipulation like that.
I'd say I would join Commissioner Brooks in that comment on that. It seems a bit of an overstep to sit there and say, we are going to say no more
Okay.
gravel driveways.
Okay. Staff can take that language out. That's fine. That's why it was there, just to discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just seems like a stretch for a planning commission. That seems like a actual law you may pass or ordinance or something.
Would, probably covered this before, but I don't remember the answer. Would a gravel drive pass a building code inspection?
It's not a building code issue. But gravel drive is not it's not inside the building.
Oh, gotcha. It's all a site plan thing.
Right. Yeah, building department doesn't get involved. If someone wanted to put a concrete slab in their backyard, building department doesn't get involved in that until they decide they're gonna put walls and a roof on it.
But it was the building department that issued the permit for my sewer line replacement.
It was probably the engineering department, Public Works, if it was a sewer line, not the building department.
I got the application upstairs.
Yes,
Okay. Good
we
bet.
share the same space with the Public Works.
Okay. I think of them as living over there, Taylor Smith, but, okay, fair enough.
Can I ask you a question?
Mr. Shrewsbury.
Going back to gravel,
Mhm.
would an HOA be able to restrict or limit a gravel driveway within its boundary?
Absolutely. HOAs are always allowed to be more restrictive than the township. A conversation we'll come back to later on this agenda.
I saw that. That's what prompted me to ask the question.
As my HOA's president for the next month, I have thoughts on HOAs.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up the parking thing. All right, so we have the pandas example in here.
Yeah,
So 64 spaces versus the required minimum, required minimum of 24.
right. Here, let me pull up there. There we go.
So the proposed cap of parking spaces, then they would be limited to 28.
Right.
So does,
But they could still ask for variance.
they could ask for a variance, they could.
And you're putting that's a big variance, to be fair. Like,
Yeah.
if you're saying you're limited to 28, and you're wanting 64, show us the data, basically. And Trader Joe's did when they got their variance. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Right, no, it's okay. This is a conversation. I don't exactly know where I'm going with this comment. But I guess would this lead to, a large amount of variance requests?
I can't answer that question with more, it's a good question. I can't answer that without more research.
Yeah,
That was the easiest example that came to mind. It's the most recent
Oh, sure.
example.
yeah,
Trader Joe's is not a good example because they got a variance. Commercial-wise, I'm not having, we've got a couple, I could look at Starbucks, I could keep looking into this is my point.
yeah.
How far down the rabbit hole do you want me to go?
Well, I guess, last comment here for a second is, I guess I feel like, I like a max parking limit, and frankly, when we were talking to Panda Express and talking about the number of customers they were gonna have versus the amount of space that they have access to, I have a hard time seeing them filling up 64 parking spaces. So like now we've built this spot out here that's using all this land, and it's got lots of asphalt. We'll have lots of asphalt. So I'm personally in favor of trying to limit that.
Okay,
And I also think there needs to be some flexibility so that the variances don't impact the ZBA so much. But I think that's part of the point. When I drive around and look at the signs, like a lot of companies just go with what the sign requirements are. And for the most part, it seems like it. And then there's a few that come up and they're like, we're gonna see if we can get a variance on it, and then they get it. But for the most part, it seems like the commercial entities just adhere to what is kind of expected. And so if a cap like that constrained behavior in some way, but then they could still request a variance, I think I'm in favor of that.
Is 20 too low of a cap? I'm not suggesting anything, I'm asking,
Can I take this in a slightly different direction?
yes,
So in other parts of the parking updates, there's a mechanism to defer to the director of planning, what was the language I just went over? The director of community development.
okay.
Let me throw this out here. Could we stipulate that a parking lot variance to get additional spots could be delegated to the director of community development rather than one of the commissions, and then that way speed the process?
No.
Okay.
The moment it's a variance to the ordinance language, there's a Michigan defined process for that. It's a good question, but
Move to Commissioner McCurtis for a moment.
Yeah, I have a question. I just want clarification. I mean, it says that Panda is required a total of 24 parking spaces. They have a cap of 28.
under the language as proposed with the 20% increase max. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So they were approved for 64, so how does that come into play? I mean, if they want more, they can just do it?
No, if this language passed, they would have to request a variance for,
Another 30,
30,
36?
whatever, 64 minus 28, I'm sorry. it's
36?
36 parking spaces.
They would have to request it.
They would have to request that from the zoning board of appeals to get that same 64. Now, they didn't go into a green site either. They went into an already developed site
Yeah.
with an already paved surface. Maybe they didn't need 64 spaces, but they weren't gonna pay. You don't typically see people paying to rip asphalt out to put in green, in a built site.
I was just confused by, they said it was approved for 64 parking spaces.
The language might, if you read the size of the Panda site led to a requirement for a minimum of 24 parking spaces. Am I
Yes,
correct?
yeah.
And they asked for 64.
Yes, so by our ordinance, they were fine, because they met the minimum.
Minimum way and above, and we're saying,
Right.
if we did this, we would have limited them to 28, so they would have had to ask permission to exceed a maximum rather than going ahead and building more than the minimum.
Okay.
Does that help?
Sorta, yeah. I just think that last line is, I mean, I get it, but it's a little bit.
Panda proposed and was approved for, maybe I'm missing some commas, and approved for 64 parking spaces.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm good.
Commissioner Nathan?
Yeah, I think, I mean, without knowing a little bit more about how many lots or how many are building considerably more than the minimum, it's hard to know what is a reasonable cap that wouldn't affect like most businesses or something. But 20% seems pretty narrow, that like you have to do, it seems like there's not a lot of opportunity for the business to decide they might need a bit more than the minimum. If it was, I would think maybe something closer to 40 or 50% makes a little bit more sense. And if they need considerably more than that, then, because I can imagine for particular lots or something like that, it actually makes sense to put a couple more spaces here than not having to trouble for a variance. But yeah, that would be my proposal.
So, Mr. Sharkey, thinking about this now, so I know we pulled Panda, and now let's ponder Joe's on Jolly.
Okay.
New build versus, I guess Panda's a new build.
On an existing site.
It's on an existing
Yeah.
site, right? But then, so compare Panda to Joe's on Jolly.
Okay.
Right? Like, under the proposed, how many would Joe's on Jolly have gotten versus what did they end up with?
I'd have to look into, I can look into Joe's. Is there anything else you want me to look into?
I think those, no, I think,
No, I'm serious, I'm serious.
I'm just saying, like, because if you're thinking of yourself as a restaurant, right? Make yourself a restaurant. You put a restaurant here. You're going to go into a new space. That's one option, right? And I guess that's kind of how I'm parking the Panda Express example, because it's an existing space. There's the Wheat Jewelers there. I know it's got to get reformatted, but then there's like the new build that Joe's on Jolly was, right? And then I think if we have those two examples, we're illustrating kind of the two opportunities for a restaurant owner.
Okay.
Mr. Shrewsbury?
And I was going to say, a lot of the development that we've seen lately, or that's come through us, actually a question and an observation, has been sort of outbuildings on like the mall site or, and so those are existing paved, limited space, but may already, so I'm not asking you to go back through all of them, and I'm not sure that exercise would be worth it, but if you find any examples of things like this would have been this or this would have been that, if there are any others of any recent ones that seem anomalous to sort of what we're talking about, I tend to be inclined to go a little higher than 20%,
Yeah,
just because I think that may be too restrictive, just even with the one example you shared with us.
sure.
Then I just wanted to clarify something. I think that it was mentioned at our last conversation that a variance is only specific to that applicant, so that if there was somebody else that redeveloped the Panda site in the future, they would have to seek an additional variance, if this were in place and they needed a variance to get to higher parking. Any subsequent developer, owner of that site would have to do the same if they wanted to keep the layout, even if they took the building and were using it for the same purpose.
Right, so when a building changes use, they have to come in for a building permit, and one of the things we look at is the parking calculation. What are you leaving versus what are you proposing? If what you're proposing makes you have to build more parking spaces, that will trigger site plan approval before you can get your building permit, that's why we look at that. So
But
with that much parking there, even if Panda was to change to something else in the C2 zone, I don't know how likely it was that someone would come in and ask for more parking on that site.
But even like, let's say Panda closes a year from now.
Sure.
And pick a different restaurant, opens in the same spot with kind of this, they don't decide to build, they don't need a building permit. Would they be permitted to continue to have that many parking spaces available to them, or would they have to reduce it because the variance was granted to Panda? Or is that too speculative?
No. Typically, I don't wanna say something that's gonna. Typically, a variance runs with the land,
Okay.
okay? So like a dimensional variance, for example, somebody got a 5 feet variance to build their house closer to the lot line than is approved, that variance goes with the land from that point forward. When you start getting into variances for like a sign, somebody wants a second wall sign, and then something happens to that building, the next thing has to conform to the ordinance. So in this case, I don't think if Panda closed, we're not gonna make them pull out 36 parking spaces and plant green for the next person to come in. I'm trying to be facetious, I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
That
we're
makes
not
sense.
gonna make them conform the site to the parking ordinance. The next person who comes in is gonna have 64 parking spaces to play with.
Why wouldn't we make them conform to the parking ordinance? Don't we make them conform to the building ordinance?
The parking exists. It's part of the land. It's part of the development at that point, from that point forward. So like if Trader Joe's was to move out and a new business was to move into Trader Joe's, they'd have that parking. That parking was approved for the site.
So like.
Variances run with the land.
Yeah. So I get that the variance is run with the land, but like when somebody redevelops a property though, and the building is outdated.
Correct.
Doesn't it have to be updated to the code? if they're redeveloping it?
That is an interesting, okay, so if you put this into place and like, okay, so like where they're building Mr. Car Wash, right? That's not just moving into a new building, they took down the Outback, they're building a
Yeah.
new structure. Yeah, that's a valid point. Like you are going through this process, you're either gonna have to green some of this space or you're gonna have to, I could see that argument. I don't know, I'd like to talk further with the planning director on
Yeah.
this. I feel like I don't wanna misstep.
That's okay.
Well, and then none of that, who do you put the onus on? Do you put the onus on the exiting owner, or do you put it on the new owner coming in to pay the cost?
Well,
Because if you're putting it on somebody new, that's a severe disincentive to take that spot up, and then you have an empty storefront.
You wouldn't put that on the leaving person, that's how you know,
Yeah.
sign, you know, out-of-date signs, things like that, they get left behind, that's
Yeah. But I'm saying, like,
a myriad of,
the crux of when I knuckleballed us into this discussion, admittingly, was incentives or disincentives for new restaurants to move into the area.
right.
Right? And to me, let's just say Panda exits, everything as is. New owner comes in, what's called a Sheets, because they have all sorts of good PR right now.
Okay.
Sheets says, we want to come in.
Okay,
Okay, Sheets, in order for you to come in, you got to eliminate 38, was that the number we came up with in the math?
yeah.
You have to pay to eliminate 38 spots. What's the first thing Sheets says? I'm going to East Lansing, right?
Right,
So it's defeating.
because those lots already exist on the
Correct,
site.
'cause it's
Right,
already there.
They're inheriting those.
Yeah, so like that, well, we're being very specific on Panda. My knuckleball was on the incentive versus disincentive to come to Meridian.
Yeah,
And now what I'm looking for is that like, and tell me if this makes sense, because this is a little bit older, but, so I talked about Joe's on Jolly, that was a new build, right?
Yeah.
And I know it's a little weird too, because it's actually mixed use, there's a gym there too, which, right, because I think that was built on the backside.
yeah, I'll look.
Okay. But then, like, I'm thinking about an issue where a restaurant came into an existing structure, and the one that's coming to mind is Anna's House.
Okay,
But I don't know if they needed any adjustments, because they were coming into, that was an old Pizza Hut, right? Yep.
it was.
Now,
I don't think they even had to go through site plan approval. They were
They
a
were
restaurant
just able to-
changing to a restaurant.
Franchise
They just,
restaurant.
you know,
yeah,
yeah.
so,
But I can look into their parking situation.
yeah, that would be, like, I'm just looking for that counterbalance from new build to existing, right? And ensuring that a new restaurant coming into an existing building would not find any disincentive to be here based on parking.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
it makes sense. And I do not see a scenario where we're going to make people take pavement out to, no.
Right, I mean,
why?
But because we wouldn't do it. They've got the parking. Like, it's a developed site.
Right. It is.
If they came into a site and they had to do something to meet a landscape a landscape section, like you are inheriting a site, you're going through site plan approval, you're gonna put some landscape islands in. Absolutely. Like we would make them put in required green space. That we certainly would do. Like you're purchasing an old site, you got 50 parking spaces all in a row, you gotta break those up now, so you're gonna put in 2 or 3 landscape islands and keep those green. You require buffer space, you're gonna have to, you know, we'll make them put in buffers and things like that. So entirely possible, maybe they'll have to do some of that work, but
So in my mind, it seems like there's a lot of land in the township and within the urban service boundary that's already been developed.
yeah,
So in my mind, using past cases to determine what the ordinance should look like now seems relatively difficult. Because really, if all the land has been developed and a lot of it has too much parking, then don't we need some mechanism for creating more building space that matches the amount of parking? So like I don't want to disincentivize businesses from coming here. However, I also feel like our place of leverage is that businesses probably want to come here. And now, of course, always in just economic things come and go, right? So things change. But we have great schools, we're right next to MSU. And there's not enough space to build more houses. So like, I guess within the urban service boundary, I'm like, are we going to try and create policy mechanisms that kind of create guidelines that move us towards more alternative transportation that aren't more parking spots? Like, I guess that's how I think about this. Because like when I go to Trader Joe's and Whole Foods lately, have you noticed? There are so many people at that intersection. It is packed.
Yeah.
And there are people walking back and forth across the street to get to places. So in my mind, like, that place has grown up and now it's the way it is. And it's like, do we need more parking spots there? Or is it that there aren't ways for alternative transportation to get there? I don't know. So like if Hobby Lobby got redesigned or like got bought out and redeveloped, like do we want that whole parking lot to be all parking lot? Because even when Trader Joe's is packed and Whole Foods is packed, the Hobby Lobby parking lot isn't full.
Well, a good point about that was brought up at the last meeting when that credit union went in there. Some of those parking spots did go away to put that credit union in.
Sure.
They had adequate parking. I want to explain this in a different way that occurred to me. You're thinking in terms of variances and things like that. So go back to Panda. Panda's got 64 sites. This ordinance goes in place tomorrow, just like it says, 20% max. They're now a legally non-conforming site. The next person that goes in there has 64 parking spaces. That's a legally non-conforming, you can purchase a legally non-conforming building. What you can't do is enlarge that. You can't make the legal non-conforming bigger. If they ever did take parking spaces out, they can't put them back. Because once you reduce a nonconformity, you can't go back to the original nonconformity. You're not talking about variances at that point. So if somebody came in and said, well, 64 is not enough, we got to go to 75, now it's a variance. Because now you're trying to increase the nonconformity.
Yeah.
That's how to look at this. Staff can look at Joe's on Jolly and Anna's house and anything else you want us to look at, but that's what's going to happen with the Panda site.
I will try to brainstorm another opportunity here before the end of the meeting, because I don't want to continually send staff on a wild goose chase.
I do. No, it's not wild
Commissioner
goose chase.
McConnell's a greater man than I am. I will defer to his wisdom.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
First of all, when it comes to redeveloping sites, I find it difficult to imagine that anyone would redevelop a site without destroying the existing parking, which is probably already very deteriorated by the time it gets to that point. If we think of the Outback Steakhouse, yeah, somebody might have knocked that building down and put a new restaurant, but they weren't going to leave that parking lot without rebuilding it. And they're probably going to destroy a lot of it during construction anyway. So I feel like that's kind of a maybe not something we need to worry about as much. But to increase the goose chase angle, some of the sites that we might look at will have potential shared parking and some won't. Wheat Jeweler and Panda Express are right next to a lot that's hugely overbuilt for parking and was recently resurfaced. But as far as I know, they're different property owners and don't necessarily need to share parking.
Correct.
I don't know what the story on Joe's on Jolly is. There is quite a bit of parking down there that I believe is off of that site, but totally available to somebody who goes in an evening and the Joe's on Jolly parking is full. They just got to walk an extra 50 feet.
Yeah.
Is that allowed? I don't know. Is there an agreement? I don't know. Anna's house, if you stand in their parking lot and look east, you'll see a sign that says, if you're going to Anna's house, you can't park over here in front of the Cottage Inn Pizza, because we've got very limited parking on this site, and we don't want our pickup parking for our pizza joint to be full of Anna's house customers. As a policy decision, I think if we're trying to limit the amount of unused impervious surface, we want to encourage shared parking when it makes sense. And we want to take that into account when somebody says, I don't need the minimum because that place is always closed when I'm open and I've got an agreement to let my folks park there.
And this has language in there to allow that to happen.
Joint use of parking facilities.
Right, right.
As we look for use cases,
Well, that's one of the things I'll look at in Joe's and Jolly. Joe's on Jolly was part of a MUPUD down there, was part of the whole, it was predates me, so I don't want to start talking specifics, but it was part of the whole big development down there. So if I can separate the parking out, I will. Otherwise, and if I can't, I'll note that.
Yeah, it just seems like, as I'm thinking through, it's like I can't think of almost any like freestanding building restaurants in any like I've lived here since 17. Like, just trying to think of like one where, you know, it said there was,
Culver?
I don't know which Culver's, good one or the other one.
The one across from Aldi's.
The one across from Aldi. Yeah, that's the other scheme I'm just trying to find in my head. It was just it was a restaurant and it now isn't, and perhaps Anna's house is the best example. I don't know. Just then I think we can deduce from that range of the two. Okay, how much range do we want to give a developer? And if it is 50%, maybe it is 50%. But I think you just need those two. Those become the guideposts. I think that Commissioner Brooks was talking about.
Okay, staff will look into that.
Any more discussion on parking ordinances? Commissioner Knapp.
Smallest of bugaboos. In section 11, landscaping, you introduce a table that replaces some language. If you could just so it's so section and on the left.
Oh, right here?
The next table. Keep going. There. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
if you could
yes.
just change it to greater than or equal to 50 vehicles, because currently, if you have 50 vehicles, you don't have a landscape buffer.
Okay.
Because that would make it
Fair enough.
conform with the paragraph that was
Fair
struck
enough.
out.
That is a good catch.
Or greater than 49.
Well, I'm making it match with the
Oh, I see.
paragraph that was
Okay.
struck out, right?
Okay.
It may just be a typo in this document, because I don't think this is how it is in the code, but in section 7, it says building additions of other increases, and I think that's supposed to be an or,
Am I going,
up to section.
section 7,
Yeah,
6, 7,
right there.
okay, building,
I think it should be an or, not an of, in that title, but I think that might just be unique to this document, not in, so that may not matter, but.
no, that's good to know. Okay.
Non-substance, that is, but
No, it's-
count on me to find those.
Eventually, it goes into an ordinance, it's fine.
I have another comment on the number of parking spaces provided on any development site. So on section 6 of that, or it's page 2. Oh, that's not the.
Yep, section 6.
Yeah, Is there, why are schools, childcare centers, hospitals, or places of worship shall not exceed the minimum off-street parking requirements? So why are they excluded from this? Right, that's what that's saying?
Yeah, that's what it says. If you are asking where that came from, I don't have a note there. I can't tell you.
All right.
I know that we don't have site plan control over schools.
Okay, that one's fair.
I don't know childcare centers, the hospitals, or the place of worship. I don't know why those would be exempt.
Yeah, I just,
It's also, now that I'm thinking about it, also interesting that we just went through and did a parking requirement update. It wasn't a max that was removed, but the multifamily residential district language, we took out the 25% required overflow. It just said two spaces per.
yeah.
This then turns around and puts a max, well, I guess it's not the same thing. Never mind, sorry. I was just thinking out loud, I guess.
Well, then we did just go through that, and that has like houses of worship in it too. And has,
I thought we had discussion on places of worship that it made a lot of sense that it couldn't be regulated locally, because we have separation issues, right?
They go through site plan.
We go through site plan?
Yeah, they go through, they still go, the big thing is that they go, you don't have a different process for them, that they have the same process, that you're looking at them the same. We
Got
can't
it.
tell them, no, you can't do that.
yeah, so that's what this makes me think of is those kind of establishments are excluded, then they have some.
I'd have to look into that and get an answer for you. I don't
Okay.
know why
I
those
would
are
appreciate-
specifically.
I would appreciate that. And
Sure.
then I like I know you got different opinions on the 50 versus 20% versus 40% cap. I like the cap lower. But I'm open to evidence that says like, these are caps that other communities have had that are similar to us make sense. Okay, and then the last thing I want to say about all this is thank you for doing the native landscaping
Oh,
and also going through all these other comments and edits.
absolutely. It's what we're here for.
Last call for parking ordinance discussion. Okay. Moving on, page 26 in the packet references the joint board commission meeting, which is the next item, 9B.
Yep. You guys wanted this back as a discussion item, so staff put this memo for you together for you really quick. You had some questions about what did you approve that went on to the board? Not everything you approve goes to the board, special use permits, most of them you're the approving authority, but staff summarized that here. And then other than that, someone should be at this meeting. You're all welcome at that meeting, that's just,
Commissioner McCurtis.
So at the last meeting, I committed to going to this. Unfortunately, I cannot because I have a recital I have to go to.
Would imagine I am at the same recital or a similar one that night.
And I have RSVP'd in the affirmative.
Okay.
But I have an all-day board meeting for my real job that sometimes goes late, so I cannot commit to being here by 6 o'clock. It's on my plans, but I don't have any control over it once it starts, so I'd rather have somebody else be our representative.
okay.
And I'll be here for moral support as soon as I can be.
I'm also RSVP'd in the affirmative, and if no one else can do it, I'm happy to step up and take that role, but I'm more than happy to have somebody who was here that full year.
You're at all the meetings.
I was.
This is like a hazing thing, you know,
Yes,
welcome
yeah.
to the board, you get to do this fun thing.
It's-
Add as well that in my experience, they're happy to be flexible with who presents when. If the representatives aren't there, they can skip and there's not really a strict. I'm sure if the supervisor knew that one of us might be coming in as late, but I don't think it makes sense anyway.
Just mental bandwidth, I'd just as soon have someone else do it than me.
I get it.
If that's possible.
Yep.
It's a pretty straightforward, you got some bullet points here to kind of guide you. You've got the annual report that I just wrote. If you have any more questions, things you want to talk about, you know where I am.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Are we good?
We are good.
Okay.
Moving on. 9C under the other business, the chicken ordinance
Okay.
update.
I want to make clear, this has been referred to you by the board. We've gotten some questions. So our chicken ordinance, and I want to make this point real up front. We just updated our rooster language. This is not that. Remember when we did roosters, I made the distinction, we're not talking about chickens. Okay, now it's the opposite. But this isn't, we've gotten some calls from people, how come they can't have chickens? And the answer is they're zoned RB. Board has asked the planning commission to look at this. The ordinance is attached to this. You can see everything all the requirements. I'll just, for the purposes of everyone on the same page, raising and keeping of chickens and rabbits is accessory to one-family dwellings in the R triple, R double, and RA zoning districts, and then there's a number of requirements, one of which is roosters shall not be allowed. The big question is, should RB and potentially RX, we don't have much RX zoning in the township, but we do have it, should those be added? And if they are added, should there, now that we're opening the lid, so to speak, on this ordinance, what other updates can be made, such as, should they require HOA approval if they're in a neighborhood with an HOA? There's an idea, at least one staff person has done this in another community, where before they got their approval, they had to get signatures from all adjacent neighbors that it was okay that they did it. And then, I guess a question from the board, what to do with the baby chickens and rabbits has been raised. So I'm just putting that all out there to you, and what would you like staff to do with this?
Commissioner McCurtis?
Well, I have a question. I mean, with the roosters, and I get in this ordinance, roosters shall not be allowed.
Right.
I get that part. Can we use this similar language from the rooster ordinance and apply it to this, and like take out the rooster piece? I'm just trying to, in terms of the zoning and the, can we use this?
It's not asking the same question.
Oh,
Roosters by default are not allowed in the RB district because chickens are not allowed in the RB district. And the basic question is, should chickens go in the RB district? Is the first thing. Okay. Roosters still wouldn't be allowed if you simply just put RB into this ordinance. So I see what you're saying, but it's not the same. It's not the same ordinance.
isn't it? Okay.
Commissioner McConnell?
Of the 4 bullet points in the memo, the first one strikes me as relatively straightforward, because it's about the size of the lots and whether this use is compatible at that size or not. The second, third, and fourth bullet points all look to me like very deep quagmires. There are very active homeowners associations that could make a decision on a neighbor owning chickens at a weekly meeting There are others that haven't met in years.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody, probably in the planning department, is gonna have to decide how much time does the HOA have to respond, and is it actually considered active? And that seems like an unreasonable burden for a planning department. Baby chickens or rabbits? Now a code enforcement officer's gotta go and try to determine the age of a chick. I just don't see that as a reasonable burden to place on a code enforcement officer. And sign off by your neighbors? Wow, wouldn't it be wonderful if we all lived in neighborhoods where we knew our neighbors? We'd knock on the door and say, hey, I'm thinking of getting some chickens, if you'll just sign here. It just seems, and I say that having had a daycare, several daycares established inside of my HOA, some of which had different responses from neighbors, but the most recent one, the owners came to the HOA and said, hey, we're thinking of doing this and we'd like to hear your opinions. We think we're within township ordinance, but we want to reach out to you, and that was wonderful, and they did, and there have been some minor complaints about their parking and things, but yeah, I personally think the township board should be reprimanded for asking us to figure out what's a baby chicken.
So
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
I get, like, chickens without a rooster, you're not gonna have baby chicks unless you bring them on the property. Because,
Which you do. How else do you get them?
well, you get them, but I think the question was what happens, like, if a rabbit, which is like the epitome of having babies, gets pregnant and has babies, and you're limited to 4, but you've got these little babies that you can't rip away from their mother because she happened to have 3 instead of 2 or something like that. So I thought, that's how I saw that 4th bullet, is what to do. But the baby chicks piece, it's like if you don't bring more than 4 baby chicks onto your site and you don't have a rooster, you're not likely to have more than 4 chickens.
Right.
But
Divine intervention.
yeah. But yeah, I agree. It would be a quagmire to try to figure all this out. And I'm not sure that we're going to legislate it any better than anything is here now. I wonder, like, sometimes we do this with light and noise and other things of, we set a standard of shall not impinge on neighbor's property, you know, like hold them to the noise ordinance. If you're really loud, and the neighbors continuously complain, or they get out of their cage that you have to keep them in and things like that. I was surprised, I apologize, I didn't read this in advance, and so I'm seeing this for the first time now. And was sort of surprised that you can't sell eggs. So this would be people raising chickens for their own personal benefit, not for the benefit of anyone else. Or if they were raising them to sell eggs, they would be selling eggs
Correct,
at another venue, not at their home.
correct.
You could barter.
You could barter?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's in the mindset of a lot of folks who raise chickens and don't want to be in the business of selling eggs, but they share them freely, and sometimes there's favors that go back and forth.
Good. And that would be within the bounds of how it's. Yeah, okay.
They're not setting a roadside stand-up and bartering eggs. They're talking to their neighbor who's coming over.
And I'll trade you for some eggs.
If you donate $5.
Green paper with, so the complaints that are coming in are sort of, what are the kinds of issues that are being raised? Is it nuisance, or is it people wanting to do something that they can't and they're trying to figure out how to do it legally?
That's my understanding. Yes, it's not that people are complaining about the nuisance, that people are saying, I want to do this. No, you can't. Why? I've told a few people more than a few people since I started here, no, you can't do it. You're in the RV district.
And this doesn't, like, rabbits that are kept inside the house as a pet would not be subject to this. This is only rabbits that are outside in a hutch being.
I'm gonna give you this. I have a rabbit. Sometimes it's outside in a hutch. Sometimes it's inside, depending on how much leverage my kids have over me. Because I was supposed to be an outside rabbit when we adopted it, in a hutch.
But then it got cold outside.
But then it got cold outside, and although we Googled several times what temperatures bunnies can survive at, the bunny is inside on occasion.
I have not had anybody call and ask about rabbits. I've had plenty of people call and ask about chickens. I cannot answer that question. Although, yeah, I can't answer that question. Yeah, the difference between, I don't feel like this makes a distinction between a pet rabbit and rabbits.
Okay.
Outside rabbits, it just says rabbits.
Yeah.
And I didn't help you at all with the question about the max 4 and what to do about baby bunnies or baby chicks. Like, I don't have a good answer for that, but I would say if mama rabbit has babies, I would not want to see baby number 4 tossed.
When we tackle,
Nursing baby rabbits are an exception. Like, I don't know.
when the roosters came before us, wasn't there a right to farm issue that was kind of trailing in the background? Wasn't that a bit of the precipice for putting it here?
That's in the last paragraph too, in the ordinance.
Okay.
Currently, so
Not regulate the keeping of chicken.
Deer and elk fine, rabbits?
Yeah, yeah, I know, I remember that. I can't pull it up or I would
That's
show
fine.
it to you, but,
Yeah, but there was some.
yeah,
right to
that
farm
was,
issue
that
trailing,
was,
right?
we didn't have a zoning ordinance mechanism for enforcing the rooster language. The rooster ordinance was done to give us a zoning mechanism so we could call it a zoning violation because it was a right to farm, but right to farm doesn't mean that you're exempt from zoning requirements. And that was the point.
Okay. Yeah,
So we do have a limit here on the number. So we do want a limit on the number of chickens and rabbits though, because people can farm them. And so we want to have some limit in order to have a zoning control over this,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah. These are not farms, these are single-family homes.
Yeah.
Commissioner McConnell?
We seem to be regulating the sex of our chickens, but we don't seem to be doing the same for rabbits.
This is correct.
Boy rabbits don't crow
Yeah.
at dawn.
This is
So
correct.
it's not,
Roosters crow.
it's not a reproduction that we're trying to avoid in the chicken case, although it has that side benefit. But why, if you were worried about numbers, why would you allow, apparently they're called bucks, which I don't think is how it should be. Bucks and does don't have, right, anyway. I think we should ask the township board to think about regulating male rabbits.
In chicken ordinances that I've seen, it seems like I've seen, in instances like in other places, it seems it's like it's defined like to get around the baby thing, a minimum age, of the chicken. Like, a chicken is defined as 3 months or older to get, because of an acknowledgement that a baby chick is not the same as a full-grown chicken in a coop. Staff could look into that if you wanted us to. Of the bullet points, staff can do whatever.
Some of the
We
questions.
really truly need direction on this.
Yeah, I would tend to join it, there was Commissioner McConnell mentioned it. The last three just seem candidly totally out of bounds to a planning commission. I'm not, there's little wisdom to me in telling an HOA what to do for many of the reasons Commissioner McConnell raised. Some are active, some are not, right? And honestly, you're gonna kind of get an indirect regulation on it, because if you're gonna build a coop, per se, you're gonna have to go to your HOA and probably get permission to build the coop, because there's usually curtilage requirements, right? If you're gonna build an outbuilding, you're gonna need HOA approval through an architectural control committee or similar committee. So it's like, by default, it's already there. The sign off from neighbors, I mean, should you? Yes. Should it be mandated by ordinance? I don't think so personally, but, and then lastly, the question of baby chickens and what to do with them, that is to me, a philosophical question more so than an ordinance question.
Well, it sounds like we've got a definition of 3 months out there, so
We don't have a definition, I'm just saying, I've seen that in other places. If we were gonna go up this route, I would look that up and I would define that better.
maybe a middle ground on neighbor sign-off might be neighbor notification. We notify people when there's a zoning application, if they're adjacent, if they have.
Yeah, but there's a hearing in that case. There's no hearing involved. This permit it talks about is simply email the community planning director and say, I want to do this. We don't have a separate application.
Right, but then you could notify all the surrounding property owners.
To what
with
end?
Your phone number at the bottom, and say, if you object, call Brian, and
And by that, you mean call the next person of Brian's job and the next person after they're facing 9 phone calls a week from angry neighbors over chickens.
The only thing that, Mr. Chair, the only thing I would say that I would push back a little bit on, it's that we're not I don't think this bullet point is proposing to dictate to an HOA, but rather it's like, we don't want to approve something, and we don't regulate HOAs at the township, right? This would put the onus on the person who wants to put the chickens in. Okay, tell us if it's okay with your board, because it's not uncommon that an HOA would say, no, you can't. If that being the case, we're not gonna do it. It's not us telling the HOA what to do, it's us asking the HOA, what would you do? Do you see what I mean, the distinction?
Right, but even personally as an HOA president, I like to point back to ordinance and say ordinance controls. Although you can argue it does or it doesn't, but I like to sit there and say ordinance rules rather than HOA rules. Because I don't want to rule on things as an HOA. I don't want to handle those issues.
I don't want to and don't have the authority to are two different things. There's
Correct.
plenty of things the
Well,
HOAs.
they're just words on a piece of paper. You can interpret them a lot of ways.
yeah, I'm gonna push back harder. Our covenants and restrictions clearly prohibit chickens. And the only way we get them is by saying, we're not gonna enforce that. Go notify the township. And we like that, because we don't have any way to enforce that, other than suing one of our neighbors.
Well, you could fine them and then you could place a lien due to the fine.
Well, we could, though, if we said, to follow your logic, if they come to you and say, can I do this? And you say, go talk to the township. If they talk to the township, okay. But who says they can't talk to the township? Because again, I said, I don't have a permit. I don't have, like, you can't go into into our department and pull the chicken permit.
It's a passive process. It's notification.
But you have
It's
a
a
record that
it's a
you
more
have.
informal, yeah. So if you decided you didn't, like tomorrow you decide to take a hardline stance, we would just stop allowing those. You don't have to enforce it. We would just not approve it. I'm defending a bullet point that I didn't propose. I'm just saying.
Well, I have a question about the HOA though, is that, or not that actually, so this is all about chickens and rabbits, and we have this max cap. Do we have regulations on an ordinance on dogs? Like when you get a dog,
Yes.
it's a big, scary dog. Like, do you have to go tell your neighbors that you're gonna get one?
Not a dog. We have a definition for a residential kennel and a commercial kennel. And you don't trigger those until you get to a certain number of dogs. I'd have to look and see the specifics. A dog isn't gonna trigger that, though.
So let's say I have 5 dogs, but I don't have a kennel. I just have dogs, they're mine. Is that the same thing as having 4 chickens or 4 rabbits?
No. A kennel is any lot or premises used for sale, boarding, or breeding of cats, dogs, cats, or other household pets over the age of 6 months also means the keeping of 5 dogs, cats, or other household pets having 4 legs over the age of 6 months. So if you've got 5 dogs, you're automatically, by definition, a kennel. Now, that's followed by commercial kennel. That's if you're commercial sale, boarding, treatment of dogs. So now money's involved, right?
Yep.
And then we go on to regulate where you can and can't do a kennel. And I'd have to dig,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
But it's not treated the same.
okay. So is it
10 dogs.
is it more restrictive in the chicken and rabbit case or less restrictive based on what you just described?
What do you mean restrictive?
Like,
Says you can keep 10
yeah. So
before you become a kennel.
that
No.
means you could get 9 dogs and I wouldn't have to tell the township anything.
No, it's 5.
Or I could,
5.
okay, so I could get 4 dogs and I wouldn't have to tell the township anything.
Yeah, that is correct.
But then if I got 5, I have to tell somebody.
If you get 5 and somebody complains, we're gonna look in the zoning ordinance in your
Right.
zoning district and see if that's allowed as a use.
Right.
If you've got a chicken, we're gonna ask you to at least email us and let us know you have a chicken, so we have a record of it.
Right. So,
But we're not gonna do that for a dog.
right. And a dog, they bite people,
But the county requires a license for those, don't they?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't the county require that your dog be licensed?
Yes.
That is true.
So it's not our zoning, but there is a licensure for a pet dog.
is there one for a cat?
I think so.
Yeah, I misread the last sentence of the kennel, comma, private, which allows up to 10 animals shall be considered commercial kennel regardless of the
Not
ownership.
involving commercial activities. Oh, yeah. So a kennel, a commercial kennel, and then a private kennel. Okay, so keeping more than 10
Last
animals,
sentence
commercial,
is redundant.
keeping more than 10 animals is a commercial kennel regardless of ownership of the animals.
So you become regulated as commercial, you can still have the 10.
Well,
I don't understand that.
Well,
sorry.
I think it's saying regardless of, so let's say I'm watching 3 of my neighbor's snakes and I have 4 dogs, 3 cats.
4 legs.
And now I'm adding the snakes. Now I am a private kennel because I have 10 animals regardless of ownership.
By definition, they don't have 4 legs.
Yeah, they have to
Oh,
have
4
4
legs. Sorry, I missed.
In the first definition of kennel, kennel also means keeping of 5 dogs, cats, or other household pets having 4 legs over the age of 6 months.
Okay, so.
So I feel like we're getting a field of the question in front of you.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think we are,
Chickens
because
don't
my
have
point
4
was
legs.
that chickens,
Rabbits.
to me at least, that they, like, I struggle with the difference between chickens and rabbits and dogs and cats.
They are regulated completely differently. The basic question in front of you is, do you want them in the RB district and the RX district? And then if you do you want other regulations on top of that, since we're opening the lid on this?
What is the density in RBRD? Or, I'm sorry, RB and R.
RB is 8,000 square foot lots.
Okay.
Here,
Thank you.
yes,
I
yes.
just want to say, though, that you said the basic question is whether we should expand an RB and RX zoning. I
Yes.
agree, and there's all these other points under here. So,
Right.
like, and it says, what do we do with chickens and rabbits? And I'm just throwing it out there that I think that chickens and rabbits are pets or things that people eat or lay eggs. And if we set a cap on them or whatever, something similar to that, like that's already in here, that seems appropriate.
So the question was the minimum lot size, just to compare, the RA district where chickens are allowed is 10,000 square feet minimum lot. And then the RB district, which is the crux of the question, honestly, we have a lot more RB properties than we do RX. That's an 8,000 square foot lot. RX, it depends. The thing about the RX zone is it allows a duplex. So the minimum lot size depends on if it's a single family or a duplex. It's a higher minimum for a duplex.
Can you imagine allowing chickens on a duplex?
So, I actually have backyard chickens. And currently, the rules for the setbacks mean that they really won't impinge other than like a little bit of noise on the neighbors. There's not issues with like smell or things like that. And so personally, I feel that as long as those setbacks are maintained, which they're already in the chicken ordinance, I don't know if there needs to be a zoning restriction as long as there's space for them. Once again, I'm very pro chicken. I have them myself. But that was my feelings. The setbacks is really what is necessary so that you don't bother your neighbors. And then there's all the rules about sanitation and stuff to make sure that you actually have space and a good place to keep them. Like I can imagine, a tower complex and they want to have their little chickens in the corner. And I don't think that would hurt anything. But that's my perspective.
I just put it out there. Look, when I read this and went through this, I didn't want to touch this question as a whole and just say, we've reviewed and we find them appropriate. Like,
I think those setback issues are really important, and I wasn't focusing on that previously. Is it conceivable that a small enough lot would be impractical given the setback requirements?
Conceivable, sure. We have undersized lots that exist. The lake lots very often have to get variances to build decks, houses, additions, things like that. So that would be the mechanism. Well, I want to put chicken, I'm RB, you're now letting them in the RB district, I want to put these chickens in, but I gotta be 5 feet, not 10 feet. I don't know. Until I see the ZBA call, I'll make a call on that. I don't know which I can't even begin to predict that.
Given the complaints that you've heard, is the setback requirement functioning as you would hope?
We haven't had any ZBA requests for variances. We haven't had any variance requests for the chicken coops, if that's what you're asking. That's not the question that people are asking. The people are asking, how come I can't have it when my neighbor down the street does? And the answer is because you're not zoned right.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
So as I was just kind of Googling using AI, like what other municipalities say, I noticed that Detroit's ordinance also includes a prohibition on slaughtering the animals on the property. Should ours have that too? I would think that we wouldn't, but if it doesn't say it, should it? Or if we're proposing some changes anyway? No, you can't sell the eggs, but like if you, I don't know.
If you want staff to do that, to look into that, staff will. That's not the question in front of you.
Okay, all right, well, never mind then.
But if the planning commission feels like that's an issue that needs to be addressed.
I don't know if it is, I'm just thinking if it's getting opened up and changed, this might be the time to add that. But if it's not an issue, I don't want to take us down a path, but.
So my perspective, if it's such a small number of animals, like it's not like you're going to have a large operation of like it's slaughter day and it's going to bother all the neighbors. Like the preparation, I've never slaughtered any of my chickens. The raccoons get them before I can. But like that's a process that's usually done like in your kitchen and it's not a bother to anyone. I don't know. Do they have a lot more chickens allowed in their
I think
ordinance?
they allowed up to 8.
I guess maybe it starts to.
I mean, to that point though, so the chickens are getting eaten by the raccoons.
Yes.
The raccoons are running around and spreading the chickens around, and I'm assuming that nobody's caught the avian flu yet.
Not any of my chickens.
All right.
See, okay, this is just me. This is why I was on the if we even open this up, because it said, what is the problem or issue we are trying to solve? Like it is, people are asking why they can't have chickens. They can't have chickens. You're just not zoned for it, you know? I mean, there's
Correct.
zoning restrictions no matter what. Like, is it? I don't know. That's why I hesitate to open it up. I mean, and it just does seem, I don't know how long you've had your chickens, but like I think about my wife personally, and she was on a big chicken kick for a while because she saw them and thought it'd be cool to have chickens, and I do not, and it didn't go any further. So it's like it's just like a passing fad because it sounds like something my wife would do, to be honest with you. Like, and then we're going to change we're going to change ordinances in order to accommodate or not accommodate a fad.
So I've had my chicken. They were a pandemic project, so maybe it was a fad. Though I have neighbors doors down that have had chickens for over a decade, and yeah. So I would say people in zone RB, if they have a lot big enough to accommodate the setbacks, I don't see why they couldn't use part of their yard to hold a coop, just because they're in RB. But once again, I'm very pro chicken. I don't want to say that should be the action of the board, but that's what I would do.
I agree. I mean, I think RB or anything within the urban service boundary, which is where the chicken ordinance is primarily being applied here. So as long as it conforms to the current setbacks, I don't see why those zones couldn't be added.
Okay.
Well, presumably they were excluded when the chicken ordinance was written.
Yeah.
But, so we have a way of knowing why the ordinance excluded those two zoning districts when it was adopted?
That is a definite maybe.
It sounds like something for an intern.
It all goes back to the RR district, which is its own issue.
I guess the one,
Actually, no, I could look, this is lookable. It was amended 5/17/22 by ordinance 2022-07. Yeah, staff could look into this.
right at the end of the
Does everyone
pandemic.
have a
My fad argument.
whereas resolution with now therefore?
Yeah, that's not very long ago at all. Staff can look at that and get back to you. If you'd like to punt this a bit.
So in this wild chicken chase, what do we have to define for you, Mr. Shorkey, like which elements of these we are interested in?
Yeah, at some point, staff's got to put together a resolution.
I mean, do we want to decide tonight which of these we send staff on such a chicken chase for, or are?
Let me suggest, if I may, let me look into the question of why were they left out. The 2022 ordinance is not that long ago. I should be able to figure something out. Let me put that together for you and come back, and then when you see that,
Okay.
you know, you got to change. Staff wanted to introduce the question tonight, but we don't expect an answer tonight.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, just before we sent you off on researching 4 bullet points, I was gonna say if there's 2 we are generally disinterested in, then we know.
That's valid, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, I don't know if there's anybody else, like I said, bullets 2, 3, and 4 are, I would just say are of non-interest to me. Others?
Yeah, I agree.
As well.
I'm not in favor of giving more authority to the HOAs. Just throwing that out there.
Correct. That is a correct interpretation as an HOA president.
And I would say I agree with you, except for the question of sort of definition of the number. If the ordinance has a number and there's some question that little ones should be excluded somehow from that number, we do have to define what it means to be a chick or a baby bunny.
Very well. So it sounds like, Mr. Sherry, there's agreement on bullet 1, And then maybe that specific question or bullet 4 of an exclusion for newborn or nursing something on chicks and rabbits.
Okay.
Because, yeah, yeah. Chicks and rabbits shall not be included until they are of a certain age, right? And then
Yep.
toward the max.
Okay.
I have one last question.
Okay.
Is there anything in our ordinance in which a single-family lot requires sign-off from adjacent neighbors in order to do that action?
A comparable.
That's a good question.
Because if it was only gonna be put on there for chickens, I'd be like,
No, any notification of neighbors is going to involve a hearing of some sort. When I started here, we did a hearing for site plans. Site plans are administrative, but there was a bit in the language where we had to have a public meeting before it could be administratively approved for public comment. And that's not dictated by state law, so we don't have a 300-foot notification. That was adjacency, and we took that out.
And that was just opportunity to comment, not opportunity to veto or sign off on.
Right, right.
Sorry, jumping.
This would be, my understanding of how this was done in another community by another staff member, like if their next door neighbor was to respond and say, well, no, I don't want them to have it, they wouldn't get that permit. We don't have that mechanism anywhere else in the ordinance, to answer your question.
I would join Commissioner Brooks. I mean, to me, why, a chicken, cat, dog, my mother-in-law just got donkeys in her place in Clare. Like, I mean,
Good.
why pick chickens for neighbor approval?
So, I mean, I agree with you, but I think part of the reason the ordinance is like this is because chickens and rabbits are almost entirely usually raised outside and in a way that could possibly be disruptive to neighbors. It's true that you can have pet rabbits inside and you be honest, you could have a pet chicken inside if you wanted to, but yeah, I think it's that these things are kind of using their yard in an unorthodox way that can impinge on the neighbors, especially if they're too close or if they're not kept, in sanitary conditions and such.
That does make sense. What if I had a really loud cat that was outside somewhere? Okay.
And you got noise ordinances, right?
Mr. Shorkey, do you have what you need for the next meeting on the chicken ordinance
Yeah.
updates?
Let me look into the 2022 ordinance that created the chicken ordinance in the first place and see if there was any guidance there. And you want me to look into the definition and maybe put a minimum age of a chicken before it counts as a chicken and rabbit, before it counts as a chicken and rabbit. Yep, that's no problem.
Any further comments on element 9C, the chicken ordinance update? We shall strut on to reports and announcements, township board update.
I don't have anything specific except that the authentics that I said at the last meeting was going to be on the next board agenda wasn't on the next board agenda. There was an illness, so it's been moved. I don't know when that's coming up. I'm not directly involved with that, but that decision is still forthcoming on that Central Park Boulevard, or Central Park Drive project. Other than that, I have nothing for you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharkey. Liaison reports for those of us that liaise.
In the report.
Nothing to report. And then you that was the trade. Commissioner McConnell?
Nope.
Project updates, I believe, were included in the packet.
Yes, I'd be pleased to see that there's some eateries on there.
Yes. Yes. I'm excited for croissants, I believe, right?
Yes, yes.
Public remarks, there are no public to hear today. Commissioner comments? Hearing none.
I move to adjourn.
second.
Move to adjourn for Commissioner McConnell, seconded by Commissioner Brooks. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are closed.